Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
Hey, my name's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, babe, it's time for some crime and coffee.
Sit down, grab your coffee, grab some crime, and here we are.
Yeah, you don't have to grab the crime because we're grabbing it and we're gonna put it right in your face. And
On
then
a silver platter.
yeah, we're serving it up. And by we, I mean you. And by me, I'm gonna be like, ooh, wow, that's a lot of stuff going on. That's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna drink me some coffee while I do that.
You bring a lot to the table here, Mike.
Yeah, I'm a very talented individual, and I'm glad to share with you guys. So thank you so much for coming around. And what are you pointing at me for?
I was going to say you have charming good looks, and that's what you bring to this table.
Wow, that is very nice. I'm so glad I paused because I saw you pointing at me. And I was like, is there something on my face right now? You're like, wait, actually, we got to stop because I can't look at you the rest of the episode.
There's a booger coming out of your nose.
It wouldn't be the first time. I actually I was looking at my face the other day. I'm older, I'm 46. And there's hair starting to come like out of the back of my ears and stuff. And like the nose trimming sessions are just getting out of hand. And I'm wondering like at what age do men get where you ever sit across from a guy who's like 60 plus and it's just like, oh man, that guy's got hairs just like rocketing out of his nose. You
have to just be dedicated to constantly manscaping.
Right.
And keeping yourself, in line.
I plan on doing that. Like I never plan on just giving up and being that like, well, whatever. But like, as you get older, you get more confident. You just kind of get like, oh, I don't care what anybody thinks. Like when does that come where it's like a guy's just like, whatever, they're going to see my hairs coming out of my ears and nose?
85 maybe?
Yeah, but like,
I'm not going to sit across from you and talk to you with hairs coming out of your nose. I'll tell you that right now.
That's my saving grace. So if you, please promise me that you will always tell me if there's like some crazy hairs coming out of my nose.
I will. Face. And then if I keel off, you have to talk to our daughter about that.
Okay. And then maybe, I'll still keep the podcast going, just to remember you.
Okay.
And I think
you guys should probably get an episode once every 6 months if that happens.
Like, guys, sorry, I had to make dinner the other day, so I'm a little behind, and I'll get back to things as soon as I can, and then it'll be 8 months later, nothing will happen. Thank God we have Allison. Speaking of sweet little Allison over here, as our puppy moves over to my lap. Wow,
this is rare, right?
Absolutely, something's off. Are you okay, little one? Jeez, you went right past your mama. But Allison did one of her absolute favorite things in the world today. And I don't know if she knows what that is. But
are you going to say that I rolled my eyes?
No, but you did roll your eyes earlier. So I don't know if you love doing that because you're highly annoyed. We were talking about that. That's not what I was planning on bringing up. Let's bring it up. Let's talk about it. So I was saying I had some homemade sourdough in my mouth and I was crunching on it. And something, I don't even know what I was saying.
I asked you a question.
Yeah, and I couldn't get it out because I was mumbling and the bread was in my mouth. And when somebody, especially Allison, when she can't understand me, I come out and try to say it like really clearly with more words to kind of explain what I'm trying to do. So if it's like, the box is over there, and I'm just like, box over there. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I'm talking about that box over there.
And when he does that, I want to smack him in the mouth. It's so annoying. And both myself and our daughter get extremely annoyed by that. It's like, you don't have to say it like that. I simply couldn't hear you. Just say the box is over there, not the box is over there.
I'm so sorry for trying to communicate clearly.
Please don't.
It is on me for trying to communicate clearly. I'm so sorry.
You sound like an absolute dickhead when you say that.
Well, I mean, if it's just something I'm trying to do, I just want to make sure you know what I'm trying to say. But that was not what I was going to talk about. What I was going to talk about was you were vacuuming today. And anytime Allison vacuums, it's the cutest thing ever. I know it's coming at the very end of the vacuuming session. She'll hold up the little canister and be like, look at this. I got all this out of today. This is just today. And I'm like, yeah, that's a lot. Wow. Every single time. And I'm just like shaking my head like, that's so adorable.
It just goes to show how horrifying it is to have two cats. Our orange cat, the red devil, he sheds like the Dickens. And
like the Dickens.
If I skip a day, because we went to a friend's barbecue, so I wasn't vacuuming yesterday. If I skip one day of vacuuming, it's terrible.
How satisfying is it for you to see all that? Like the dander and the fur and all the dust bunnies?
It is twofold. It is both satisfying and horrifying that we are living in filth.
Yeah, but do you ever stop and think like, man, that is so satisfying?
Yeah, for sure. And we have no carpet in our house except for just the occasional throw rug, because there's just so much dust and whatnot that gets caught in carpets, especially with pets.
And unfortunately, we got dark wood floors. I really wish we didn't do that because now it's not in anymore. So nobody's going to buy this house forever.
Oh, no, our floors are definitely not out with the times. I wish we got a more blonde wood floor because the sun rises at the front of our house and sets at the back, and we have windows on both sides. So you see all the pet hair when the sun is on it, and it drives me batty.
And we purposely didn't get super dark floors, but they're still kind of dark a little bit.
They're definitely not out of style.
I love how they look. I love them. I absolutely love them.
At the same time, it helps keep me on top of keeping dust and anything off the floor. So in a way, it's good, and in a way, it's bad.
And strangely, me too, because I'll run a robot every once in a while. You know, I might not bring out the vacuum, but I'll run the robot vacuum, and that thing's awesome, by the way. Roborock, that we've talked about it before. But
it does take like a solid 2 hours to do the main area, which is why sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to bother with it.
Yeah.
And I'm also wearing my friend's shirt. Well, it's not my friend's shirt. She bought it for me, but she saw it and thought of me, and it was so sweet. And it says,
adventure is out there, but so are serial killers.
Yeah. So, you just have to remember that.
Allison made a little Instagram about it today. She was so excited. So, Lauren, if you're out there and listening, then she loves your little shirt. Thank you so much.
Our friend is our bestie. She's an avid listener. So thank you for thinking of me when you think of serial killers. And I just assume most people that I look at when I'm out in public are serial killers.
It's a safer way to go, man.
Absolutely. So on that note, shall we dive into this cup of coffee?
Let's do it.
All right, so this is a listener suggestion from Rita, and this is the murder of Iana Kasian. And I will tell you that this is a brutal murder, so I'm just putting a little warning out there. So in May of 2016, when Olga Kasian was unable to reach her 30-year-old daughter, Iana Kasian, who was living in West Hollywood with her boyfriend, Blake Leibel, at the time, her mother's intuition just told her that something was terribly wrong. So Olga decided to contact the police, who eventually gained access to the home, and what they found inside was something that responding officers will never be able to erase from their minds. So according to Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Sergeant William Cotter, in his nearly 30 years of being in law enforcement and working as a homicide detective, he has never witnessed anything quite this heinous. So Iana was born in Estonia, where her father worked in a Navy yard and her mother was in the healthcare industry. So they relocated to Ukraine soon after Iana was born. And then sometime around 2014, she relocated to LA. She was described as a girl that just really wanted to soak life in and just be adventurous. And that's kind of ironic that my shirt says adventure is out there, and she wanted to see what was out there. So she moved to LA at that point. So she was a gorgeous young woman. She had dark eyes, jet black hair. She was living in the sunny state of California, which was a stark contrast to where she had grown up in Kiev, Ukraine. So she worked as a tax lawyer in her 20s while she was living in Ukraine. And then when she immigrated to the United States, she was training to work as a translator. And she dreamed of really one day raising her children. She wanted to live in the powerful nation of the United States. That was her dream. So right around this time, Iana met Blake Leibel, and he was an aspiring Hollywood producer who was born into an extremely wealthy family. So he was raised in Toronto, and many people viewed him as an eccentric man. He was friendly. He wanted to make people laugh. So Blake's family was, like I said, very wealthy on both sides of the family. So his father is Lauren Leibel, and he was a former Olympic sailboat racer. Apparently, he tested positive in 1976 to a banned stimulant. You wouldn't think like a sailboat racer would be taking a stimulant.
I mean, it gets you up and going, right?
I guess if it keeps you energized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when his career ended, he became a prominent Toronto developer. He was a real estate mogul, very highly wealthy, built thousands of suburban homes across Canada. So Blake's maternal grandfather, he started a plastics business called Elros Products, and it eventually became an empire. And his maternal grandmother, Leona, she did suffer from long bouts of severe mental illness. This is according to a report in Canada's National Post. So when Blake and his brother Cody were children, their parents, Lauren and Eleanor, they separated, but they didn't end up going through a divorce. They were actually still legally married. So Blake went on to live with his mother, and Cody, who was older by 1 year, he went to live with his father. So apparently their father lived in the wealthiest area of Toronto. His mom lived in the second wealthiest area of Toronto. I saw both of their houses. I mean, they were basically mansions. So now the brothers were separated basically throughout their childhood. So since Cody was the more athletic of the two siblings, Blake was tormented and he struggled with jealousy and this feeling of inadequacy from an early age. So he basically believed that Cody was viewed as the superior of the brothers in his father's eyes. According to a close family friend, Blake always seemed very scared of their father. He always tried to impress him and prove that he was not a mistake. So after Blake attended the University of Western Ontario, he and Cody relocated to California in 2004. They wanted to escape the harsh Canadian winters and see what LA was all about.
Real quick, I'm picturing the kid from Wedding Crashers. It's like, plays Tummy Sticks with Vince Vaughn.
Oh, that's Todd.
Yeah, Todd from Wedding Crashers. He's like, I'm a person too, Dad, or something like that.
Exactly,
so sorry, I don't want to make fun of anybody. That's who I'm picturing right now.
Right. So Blake was planning to pursue a career in entertainment, film, and graphic novels. They settled themselves in LA, where their father gave them each a big house as well as an $18,000 a month allowance.
That's not bad. You can live on that.
Can you imagine every month 18 grand just gets deposited magically into your account?
And that's like $240,000 a year. That's almost, it's like a little less, but it's, man, that is more than the average household makes in the United States.
I can't even imagine it.
I mean, in LA, it probably doesn't go as far, but it's okay.
Right. And obviously a lot of their expenses were already being paid for. So Cody tried to establish himself as a Hollywood playboy, and he started a music company, which is a now defunct C-Note Records. And then he followed in his father's footsteps with real estate. So at the young age of 23 years old, Cody was the world's youngest owner of a $1.2 million Ferrari Enzo. And this is only one of a few hundred that were made in the world.
What's so cool, I'm not a car guy at all, but I watched the special, and Ferraris are so cool. Like, you have to be exclusive. They have to approve that you can buy one. And like, you can't paint them. You have to get approval from them. And like, it's almost like there's a lease or something. Like, you don't officially own it. They can always take it back at some point.
Even if you've paid it off?
I don't know. Don't like quote me on that one, but it seems like it's kind of like they can take it away and they can allow you never to have one again too. So it's like, it's a very exclusive club. Mm-hmm. Whereas like Lambos are like, you just buy one if you have money, you can just get it. Where Ferrari, like, they have to approve it.
Interesting. I know you mentioned that, but I don't know. That's weird to me. But meanwhile, Blake had very different ambitions than his brother. They were different. He was on the more creative side of things. He directed a low-budget 2008 comedy called Bald. And this is about a college student who was trying to raise money for his hair transplant by creating a website that featured sexy female students. He also contributed to the animated Spaceballs series, which was an offshoot of the popular Mel Brooks movie, which I love Spaceballs when I was growing up.
Big fan.
So despite his dream to work as a producer, Blake's most successful project was actually a graphic novel called Syndrome. It was about a neuropathologist who launched a bold experiment in Nevada in the desert to isolate the root of all evil within the human brain. And he hoped and dreamed that one day that this graphic novel would be turned into a TV show. So some within LA, in their social circle, they saw Cody and Blake as these trust fund kids that were out maybe playing with mommy and daddy's money. Others viewed Blake as a guy that was smart and hardworking. You know, when you have that cushion of money to fall back on, you can be more creative because it's not about the day-to-day survival, about going to that 9-to-5 job so that you can have the money to pay the bills. It gives you a lot more freedom to look and be creative.
Yeah, you almost have zero risk. So like anything you want to do, you try it. If you want to start a record company, C-Note Records, you're just like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to start this record company. Any music I like is going to be part of it. And you go. And you just have this money. If it doesn't work out, I'll try something else.
Yeah, you've got that safety net that's going to catch you if the bottom drops out. So in 2006, before Iana Kasian moved to LA, she's still living in the Ukraine at this point, Blake met this beautiful model named Amanda Braun, and the two ended up getting married in 2011. So while Amanda was more like a very socialite type of girl, not socialite in the sense of money, very social. She wanted to be out and about on the Hollywood scene, attending parties, whereas Blake was more of a low-key homebody. He wanted to be in the comfort of their own home, maybe hanging out and reading comics. So in 2011, the same year that they got married, Blake's mother, Eleanor, was sadly dying of brain cancer. And this is a time when his friends started to notice changes in Blake's behavior. They indicated that he was acting out, he was throwing tantrums if he didn't get what he wanted, if he didn't get his way. And he was in a cycle. It was like this ongoing back and forth that involved yelling, verbal abuse, and then he'd berate somebody and then come back around and apologize. He'd smooth things over, make it right, and then things would be calm, and then the cycle would continue. And that's always hard with friendships because you can't trust a person's moods. You don't know what you're going to get that day. Is he going to be apologetic or is he going to be screaming and yelling at him? So after his mother died that same year in 2011, Blake was under the impression that because he was raised by her while his brother was raised by their father, that Eleanor intended to leave the bulk of her $12 million estate to him exclusively. However, he came to find out that a significant portion of this money was going to go to his father, Lorne, instead. So Blake was under the impression that maybe his dad manipulated his mother's will at the last minute. So in 2013, after he fought for the money in court, he was awarded less than half, which, is still a good amount of money, like somewhere around 5-6 million-ish.
That's not bad.
Right. So Blake and Amanda, they had a son together. But when Amanda was pregnant with their second child and nearing her due date, Blake suddenly packed up his things and abruptly left her in the summer of 2015.
Oh, what a scumbag.
I mean, talk about a time to do such an upheaval. And it just seemed to come out of the blue. Like everyone is like, what is going on? It seemed very erratic.
Yeah, clearly has some things going on mentally.
Right. So the divorce was filed in July, and then Amanda gave birth to their second son the following month. So some saw this as the start of his truly erratic behavior. So Blake moved out of this Beverly Hills home that his mother had funded for them in order to allow Amanda to raise their sons there. And they did say that it was an amicable divorce. So shortly after he moved out, he crossed paths now with Iana Kasian. And he told her, that his marriage was over. He was a single man. So the relationship was a whirlwind. Everything moved very quickly. They took lavish trips together. They dined out. He purchased her this expensive Mercedes. So she's coming from from Ukraine to America to establish herself in this country. She settles in LA. Talk about there's a lot going on in LA.
Yeah.
And then she meets this wealthy man who is just taking her out on the town and courting her and buying her expensive things.
She's pretty much plugged into the social pipeline and has unlimited amounts of money. Like she doesn't have it, but access to someone that does. And it's a pretty nice life.
Right. So some people said she was living a very charmed life, and their relationship progressed quickly. They soon moved into a condo together on Holloway Drive. So they were living in West Hollywood, a block south of the Sunset Strip, very nearby, like the Viper Room. Like that's where River Phoenix ended up overdosing.
Oh, okay.
Just this, where a lot of things are happening.
It's happening, yeah.
Yeah. So they're in this swanky neighborhood. And then in a matter of months, Iana realized that she was pregnant. So Olga, Iana's mom, she was thrilled when she learned that she was going to be a grandmother. And it was her understanding that Blake was either divorced or in the process of his divorce, from Amanda, because this is what Iana had told her. So as Iana's due date was approaching, Olga flew from Ukraine to LA, and this is the time when she met the man that was promising to marry her daughter. And obviously she wanted to be present for the time when her granddaughter was born. And Blake set Olga up in a nearby apartment because she wanted to be able to help with the baby. And only days later, baby girl Diana was born on what just so happened to be Olga's 60th birthday. So it's like everything was coming together and it seemed beautiful and perfect. And according to Olga, both Iana and Blake, they were very happy. Blake seemed content with his new family, and she noticed that he often showed her daughter attention, and he was tender with her. And when he kissed her, he would say in Russian, "My beloved." So, however, this picture of a happy family of three, it was very different from what Blake was confiding in a friend via text messages. So, unlike his younger brother, Cody is this guy that lives this very loud, fast lifestyle. He loved to be the center of all the action that was going on in Hollywood. So Blake feared that because his brother had this large gambling debt that he was racking up, he was playing poker with these Russian mobsters, and that maybe these mobsters were a threat to those that he loved, and he feared that he would lose his family somehow. So Cody played in an underground high-stakes poker ring known as Molly's Game. Have you ever heard of that?
I think I'm thinking of the Netflix special, but
It turned into a movie.
Okay.
So this game was held in various mansions or hotels throughout Beverly Hills or Hollywood.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, talking like very rich celebrities and
Like
all these.
very well known, like name brand people.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah.
Tobey Maguire,
Yes.
Ben Affleck.
Right.
I think Leonardo DiCaprio was named. So hands could go as high as $4 million. And the organization was named after Molly Bloom, a former competitive skier who organized these high-stake games that attracted, like I said, a lot of A-list actors, very, very well-known people. So Cody himself had lost at least over $1 million during a night of playing, which is really hard to wrap your head around. So Blake was convinced that these people that his brother was associated with could potentially pose a threat to him and his family. So investigators also came to learn that Blake wasn't a simple family man, that was just cuddled up at home, nestled with his newborn and his fiance, doting on them. When Diana was born, he was actually tangled among technically 3 different women. And by early 2016, his personal life had gotten very complicated. My dad always jokes, I could barely handle your mother. How would I ever take on another woman? That'd be crazy.
I can't respect like anybody who cheats on. I mean, yeah, there's situations I get, whatever. But like I was at a guy's trip once and some other guy I barely knew, he was like cheating on his wife actively. I'm like, this is not the space for me, man. I'm just like, I just respect my family too much. And I'm not a piece of crap coward that's going to go cheat on them.
And brought the girl to your guys' trip.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It's so gross.
Nobody's that's close to us.
So on top of going through a divorce with Amanda, who was living in Beverly Hills, he was obviously in a relationship with Iana. But on top of that, he is also seeing a third woman. So picture him being at the condo with Iana and their brand new baby. And now he's got this third woman, Constance Bucca-Fury. And she's living in this ritzy little house that Blake owned that was really only a couple miles away from where he and Iana lived.
That's convenient for him. He can just pop in every single house and, have some intercourse and keep on going.
So he was sharing his time between Iana and Constance, living multiple lives. So it seemed that after the birth of Diana, Blake's behavior went from erratic to disruptive in a matter of days. Because like I said, when the baby was born, Olga said they did seem content. Very, very short-lived. So while home, he would keep the windows locked and the curtains drawn, and he would blast the air conditioning despite the fact that they had this newborn baby in the house. So when Iana would complain about this, Blake would tell her, you could just leave and go to your mother's house. She would stay at her mom's for a night or two, and then the cycle would continue. And it sounded like that was his MO. He would disrupt everything and then smooth it over, and disrupt everything and smooth it over.
Yeah.
So he chain smoked pots. He would fill the condo with smoke, and his mood seemed to grow darker by the day.
With the baby in the house? What I can't respect people that just like, this guy sucks.
And I don't know if it's because he was just born into privilege. And
I don't care why.
Sense of entitlement.
I don't care why.
No, I don't care why either. It's not okay,
Whatever.
but I'm saying it's like when you're born into everything and you think you can just do whatever you want to do without consequence or without taking other people's feelings into account. It's not a good way to live.
Yeah, really quick. It shows there has to be balance. There has to be, the good and the bad. Otherwise, you don't feel anything. If you're just gifted, and that's why enablement and just giving your kids like whatever they want all the time is ultimately a bad thing, because then they'll never feel boredom or sadness or without something. They're just constantly fed something. So this guy, Blake, he's just trying to feel feelings basically. So that's why a lot of like rich people get into drugs and all this craziness, because it's like, I just want to feel something. Whereas like for me or you, it's like, oh, we got a pineapple growing in the backyard. That's awesome. Like that makes us feel something. For them, it's like they've got these lavish gifts coming to them all the time. So to feel something, they got to go above and beyond.
Yeah, it takes a lot more to feel something. So in mid-May of 2016, this is only 2 weeks after Diana was born and less than a week before Olga Kasian contacted the LAPD about concerns for her daughter's well-being, Constance, the other woman, accused Blake of sexually assaulting her in the home that she was staying in that he was paying for. So according to court documents, the assault occurred months earlier when she and Blake had first started dating. She said that Blake assaulted her multiple times and infected her with an STD. But despite these attacks, she did continue to forgive him. So after he was arrested and held in jail, Iana had to help him. She had to go and bail him out. So obviously, this fully pulled the wool away and the affair was exposed. So on his release, he was facing felony rape charges. So according to Olga, her daughter was terrified of losing her dream life in America and of losing Blake. So she agreed to allow her baby girl to live in her mom's nearby apartment. So she agreed to this as a way to focus and repair her relationship with Blake, who suddenly had zero interest in his own daughter. So Iana's American dream, thank you, was quickly turning into an absolute nightmare. So Blake threatened that he would leave her at any moment for another woman as a way to constantly manipulate and demand sex from her. And this is despite the fact that she was still recovering from a C-section.
I hate this guy.
He took advantage of Iana's vulnerable situation. He was controlling the finances. She had just had a baby. She was terrified of losing her life in the United States. And because of this, Olga indicated that Iana ended up doing anything that he demanded of her. He was holding the upper hand on everything, and he was manipulating that situation and that control. So Olga begged her daughter to just leave the relationship and move on with her life, move her and Diana in with her, but sadly, she just wasn't ready to give up. So on Monday, May 23rd, 2016, Iana went shopping with her mother, and as the day continued on, she began receiving a barrage of text messages from Blake. And his persistence eventually wore her down, and in the midst of this shopping day of the two ladies, Iana told her mom, "I'm going to him," and she left. And this is the last time Olga ever saw her daughter alive. So the following day, when Olga was trying to get a hold of her daughter, she called her at least 6 times, and each and every call went to voicemail. And after this final 6 missed call, she just had this gut intuition that she needed to make sure that Iana was okay. But at the time, she was home caring for Diana. Diana was sleeping, so she reached out to the police for their help. So obviously there's a language barrier here, and she's coming from the Ukraine, and she did not speak English. So she was placed on hold for a very long time until they could track somebody down at the station who spoke Russian. So despite this conversation and the fact that she was conveying her concerns, the fact that her daughter had just had this C-section, she was worried for her. She was truly unsure of what happened in regards to that call. Did officers even go to the condo? Because she wasn't hearing back and being updated about what went on. So now it's the following day, Wednesday morning, May 25th, 2016, 2 days after she last saw Iana. So Olga woke up and she just was feeling frantic inside. She was still unable to reach her daughter. So this time she called on a taxi and she went to Iana and Blake's condo with her friend. So they desperately tried to get into this gated property. And in the meantime, before they could get the gate to open, Olga went across the street. She wanted to look up towards their patio to see if she could see anything. So as she's looking towards her daughter's 3rd floor unit, she saw Blake standing in the window, and she's screaming out his name, but he didn't acknowledge her. He didn't respond.
And this is 3rd floor, you said?
Yeah. So, maybe they had really good insulated windows. Maybe he couldn't hear her. Yeah. But regardless, he did not react to her screaming his name. So finally, another resident opened the gate. They left, and she took that opportunity to rush through and get access into the condo complex. So now at her daughter's front door, Olga continued to knock and pound on the door and ring the doorbell to no avail. So she contacted the police again. So when officers arrived, she explained the situation and the fact that she was fearful for her daughter's safety. She knew that Blake was inside.
She saw him.
Why was he not opening the door? He would not answer the door, even to officers. And Olga is standing out there with the officers begging and pleading for them to break down the door. And they explained that there was no proof of foul play, so they had no right to enter this man's place without permission. So police were trying to call Blake. There was no answer. They waited outside for a few hours, and they eventually left. There was, in their mind, nothing more that they could do. So Olga was left standing there, feeling utterly terrified and helpless. She was convinced her mother's gut instinct told her that her daughter was on the other side of that door, but she couldn't get to her. But since Olga needed to get back to her 3-week-old granddaughter, who was being cared for at the moment by a friend, she had no choice, and she had to reluctantly leave that complex. So the following morning, on Thursday, May 26th, Olga was back on the phone with the police, once again begging and pleading for their help. And finally, this time, officers agreed it was time to get into that condo. So they worried that because Iana had only just given birth a few weeks before, she had had a C-section, that maybe there was a chance that she was suffering a medical emergency. So as the officers arrived, they told Olga, that she had to wait near the main entry. They did not want her coming up to the 3rd floor because obviously they have no idea what they're going to walk into. So when officers once again arrived at Iana's front door, they announced their presence. They continued to scream out Blake's name, but just like with the day before, there was absolutely no response, no answer. So after they eventually got a key from the realtor, they unlocked the door. But when they tried to push it open, they realized that the door was secured by a swing bar lock. So this told them that for sure someone was inside that unit, because it had to have been that the person on the other side of the door is the one that engaged that swing bar lock. So when officers broke the door down, they finally had to kick through that lock.
Did they have a search warrant? No.
They didn't, but they had reason to say she had surgery 3 weeks before. So maybe there was a medical emergency.
Yeah, smart.
So they noticed that the living room seemed disheveled, but they didn't really see anything of concern right then and there. But they saw that the hallway door that led to the bedrooms, that it was locked and barricaded. So they had to actually remove the door from the hinges to get through. So as soon as the officers looked into the guest bedroom, there were immediate signs of foul play. They noted blood on the headboard as well as the walls. So they continued to call out Blake's name, but they were met with only silence. And after they made a sweep of the guest bedroom, they found it empty. So they moved toward the master bedroom, and it was also barricaded, in this case with a mattress. I believe the mattress that was in the guest bedroom. So as the officers continued to push against the mattress in order to gain entry into the room, they suddenly heard Blake's voice yell out. And he's saying that he is refusing to come out of the room, and he's claiming that Iana wasn't there. So during this time, Blake called a friend. So this friend rushed to the condo and finally convinced him to open the door and come out of the bedroom. So wearing only boxer shorts, Blake finally emerged from the room. In the meantime, homicide detective Cotter and Martindale were called to the scene. And according to Sergeant William Cotter, although, like I said, he has seen many homicide scenes in his career, nothing could have ever prepared him for what he walked into that day.
That's saying something for somebody in LA.
Absolutely. This is LA. He's been doing this job for a few decades. He has never seen such a crime scene as he walked through that master bedroom. So as they moved on to the master bedroom, there was an obvious large blood stain on the wall that someone clearly attempted to clean up. And this is when they came upon Iana, and she was covered in a Mickey Mouse blanket up to her chin. And at first glance, she almost looked peaceful. But once her head was off the pillow, the gruesome violence that she had been subjected to was very apparent. According to Sergeant Rob Martindale, the injuries that the 30-year-old had suffered were horrific and unspeakable. There were bite marks to her face. She had been scalped.
Oh.
And the color of her skin was oddly pale.
Man, that's just like, it's chilling. It's like,
very
we say
chilling.
that all the time, but I'm feeling it sad.
What had been done to her was utterly sadistic and sick. Not only did Iana have defensive wounds to her arms and her wrist, but Blake had scratches and bruises to his face and a bite mark on his arm that proved that Iana had tried in vain to fight him off with everything. So as the condo was further examined, investigators found a pair of Blake's pants there, and in the pocket there was a passport as well as $4,000 in cash. So they theorized that he was planning to dispose of Iana's body, clean up the crime scene, and likely flee the country back to his home country of Canada. So Olga is standing outside on the ground level of the condo complex, having no idea what's going on inside. And she saw that Blake was being led out of the condo in handcuffs, but she could only look beyond him. It's like she couldn't even see him because all she wanted was to hope and pray that Iana would be brought out. And she continued to scream, "Where is my daughter?" As she stood outside, leaning against a wall, Sergeant Martindale had the horrific task of breaking the unimaginable news that her daughter was dead. And it made it so much more difficult because she didn't speak English.
Right.
So they had to have had a translator there.
I hope so. God, can you imagine? You're like, we got to communicate to her and we don't speak the same language.
Right. So despite the fact that Olga tried her best, she just wanted to get past the officers and go inside and be with her baby. But of course, they would not allow her. And thank goodness they didn't, because it just would have been horrible to see her like that.
Yeah.
So Blake's arrest photo depicts the face of an absolute madman. He had obvious scratches and bruises on his face. He had a sick smile. His eyes were haunting and demented in appearance. He told officers that he had nothing to do with Iana's gruesome murder or the horrific crime scene. And when they asked him, well, what happened? He said, science is going to tell you. And he continued to hold firm on the fact that he had no idea that she was dead. And when the detectives point blank said, she is dead in that bed, he coldly replied, well, I guess you'll have to find out who did it then. So when crime scene specialist with the LA County Sheriff's Department, this is Leslie Thompson, she entered the condo and she was immediately struck by the fact that there was a lack of blood that was unexpected, because she would expect in this murder, a murder this brutal, that there would be a lot of blood.
Yeah, without repeating it, just seems like, the things he did, there'd be a lot.
So, however, when something the investigators referred to as luminol 2.0, otherwise known as Blue Star Magnum, it was sprayed on the surfaces of the condo, and it was very clear that an immense amount of blood had been cleaned up around the entire condo. The chemical compound in Blue Star reveals where blood was and where a cleaning substance was used in order to clean it. So this creates a luminescence or light that allows you to see blood that was previously invisible to the naked eye. So when investigators came into the master bedroom, they noticed small blood stains. They're seeing small blood stains on the mattress to the naked eye. But when they utilized Blue Star, the room lit up like you would not believe.
I'm looking at it on my phone, and it's like pretty much an advertisement for the product.
It's horrible. There was a tremendous amount of blood on the floor to the left side of the bed. So despite the fact that the bathroom, when you walked into that bathroom, it looked like there was no blood in there whatsoever. But when sprayed with Blue Star, just like much of the condo, it lit up. And this told investigators that what happened to Iana in that condo had been absolutely horrific. I mean, unimaginable. You can't even imagine. So what led to her death did not just happen quickly. In one room, blood evidence proved that it had been prolonged, torturous, and brutal. Investigators learned that Iana's cause of death is what is medically known as exsanguination, and this is a draining of all the blood in the body. Most of the blood loss occurred because she had been scalped. This explained why her skin had looked so oddly pale when investigators found her body. So the average human body contains about 5 liters of blood, and Iana was found with less than a teaspoon of blood in her body.
Okay, so, imagine you're going to explain how this all happened.
She bled out from being scalped.
That's it.
Yeah.
Man, I don't want to get too far into it, but it's a tremendous amount of blood loss.
So once a person is deceased, they are unable to bleed out because the blood is no longer pumping through their body. So this tragically meant that Iana had been alive for the duration and had likely suffered immensely. Detectives determined that it had taken from anywhere from 6 to 8 hours for her to die. So the last reported scalping in the United States had been in 2000 when a Cincinnati man shot his wife's lover repeatedly in the chest and groin with a shotgun and then removed his scalp. So that was 16 years before this happened. Iana's was a clean incision that seemed to have been made with a blade that curved around the base of her skull in a sharp line and back up around one ear.
Oh my God, that's so horrible.
It's so barbaric.
It's so much worse than a murder, and a murder is horrible. Like this, did he find this stuff in the comics that he read? Like, you're going to tell us, I'm sure.
A lot of, what was seen in this came from that book, that graphic novel, Syndrome.
Yeah.
But it was just so horrible. The investigators found like bits of flesh around the condo. So because use of Blue Star proved that the condo had been extensively cleaned, investigators were left to determine what had been done with all of the cleaning materials. Because when I say there was a lot of blood, it was a lot of blood. This included bedding, clothing, towels, etc. So this was when they noticed just how close the building's trash chute was, because they're in a condo. So they've got those trash chutes that you just dump your garbage in. So Cotter and his team collected 11 trash bags from the dumpsters that were filled with towels, clothing, and bedding. and they found a bed skirt, and it was in the dumpster, and it was imprinted with a bloody handprint that appeared to be missing the top portion of the pinky finger of the person's right hand. So when investigators looked at Blake's right hand, well, what did they see?
No pinky?
He was missing the top portion of the pinky. So this proved what detectives obviously believed all along, was that Blake Leibel was responsible for Iana Kasian's murder.
Well, yeah.
So a blood test proved that the attack against Iana was not drug fueled. He had a small amount of marijuana in his system and nothing more. Investigators were left to wonder, what was the motive? What would cause a man to do such unimaginable things to a woman that he claimed to love, that literally weeks before he was kissing and calling my beloved? This was his fiance. This was the mother of his newborn baby girl. So during his interview, Blake made the comment that women don't like him. And he alluded that, if he did not have money, that women would not be interested in him whatsoever. So because he held control of the money, he believed that he had control over the women. He dangled his money like a carrot. So investigators theorized that Iana said no to him, and this was something he could not handle. So investigators looked into Blake's background, knowing that something this horrific doesn't just come out of nowhere. However, I will tell you, when they spoke with people that knew him from childhood in Canada, they couldn't wrap their minds around it. They
That's
were
insane.
Stunned.
You would think that somebody like this would be like, yeah, I can kind of see where that's coming
No.
from. You would never expect them to be, no, Blake, the same guy? We're talking about the same guy? That's
They
crazy.
said they couldn't understand how he could ever be capable of this kind of violence. Like I said, they looked at him as this kooky, eccentric guy who liked to spend his parents' money.
Artsy, yeah, I get all that.
But he never discussed, he did have dark thoughts because he came up with that book, Syndrome.
Sure.
But it's not like he was, standing out like a sore thumb where people were like, oh, it's only a matter of time before this guy does something. They were all just shocked.
Yeah, you look at Stephen King and Dean Koontz and anybody that's written those kind of stories.
Right. So, he was eccentric, always charming, but he also was manipulative for sure. He had many ups and downs, and he would get into a fight, like I said, and then he'd come back around and smooth things over. He just had that ability to just play with people's emotions. So according to Dr. Chris Mohandy, who is a forensic psychologist who worked with the prosecution in this case, Blake is not crazy. Being found insane or incompetent in the eyes of the law is different than someone that is able to do something outrageous, heinous, terrible things to another person. So although this person never met Blake, a court-ordered psychiatrist did find Blake competent to stand trial.
Never met him, but said he was competent to stand trial?
No, the psychiatrist did.
Okay.
Fine. He met Blake and found him competent. I'm talking about this Dr. Chris Mohandy. So according to Mohandy, this is because Blake knows right from wrong. And that is the legal standard for if somebody is truly insane. Because if you're insane, you have no idea that what you've just done is wrong. He cleaned that condo. He disposed of that evidence. He barricaded the door. He had his passport and cash in his pockets. He knew what he did was wrong. So because of Blake's background, Mohandy feels that what happened was shocking, but not necessarily surprising. He grew up amongst wealth as a child while he was alienated from his father at a very young age. And as he grew, he developed a need for power and control, specifically over women. He always got what he wanted, and he wanted control, and he did have these violent fantasies, hence the way that he was able to make this graphic novel, Syndrome. He had been working on this for years before Iana's murder. And obviously, like you said, we watch horror movies, we read horror books, Stephen King, Dean Koontz, etc. They're not out murdering people.
Not that we know of.
So the trial began in June of 2018. This is 2 years after Iana was killed, when Blake was 36 years old. Prosecutor Beth Silverman believed that Syndrome, this graphic novel, was the blueprint for his murder, and Blake was acting out a fantasy from this novel, whose cover, ironically, depicted a baby doll that was missing its scalp with its brain exposed. So the book discusses 2 victims that were hanging upside down in order to exsanguinate or drain the blood from their bodies.
And unfortunately, that's what I was picturing. And I didn't know if he did that or not.
It doesn't sound like it. So prosecutors made the case that after Diana had been born, Blake became jealous of a newborn baby and the attention that she took away from him. He was desperate for the attention that his baby girl was receiving, but Iana was a busy mom caring for a newborn baby that needs constant attention and care.
Also, maybe have a discussion, just be like, hey, I'd love to spend more time together, and then make a date, and then, let Iana's mom watch the baby. There's definitely options here outside of murder, I would say. And it reminds me of that movie Waitress, or the book Waitress, or whatever, where the man is like, "Don't you go loving that baby more than me?" And it's like, you're such a little man.
Like how small-minded are you that you are jealous of a newborn baby?
Yeah, like we need love. Every human needs love, right? But like, go about it like a real man and be like, "Hey, let's spend more time together," instead of like, "You gotta love me too."
And you just have to realize that when you're up to your eyeballs with a newborn baby, what we would do was we would put our son to bed and then we'd order sushi takeout and watch Dexter.
Yeah.
That was like our idea of a date night.
A wonderful murder night.
I mean, you have to do what you have to do,
right.
But you're not taking your brand new baby out and about on town and getting babysitters left and right. You want to be there.
Yeah.
So his motive, according to them, was power and control. So prosecutor Silverman argued that the ultimate act of power is taking someone's life, taking away their future and everything they dreamed that it was going to be. So the jury heard that in the midst of Blake's torture of Iana, he actually took the time to order food delivery to the condo several times based on security footage. This would have given him ample time to stop, assess what he was doing, and change his mind. But regardless, he chose to continue on with these horrendous acts against Iana. So a 3D animation was created in order to recreate the brutal crime scene in a highly realistic way that basically incorporated all of the blood evidence that was revealed with the use of Blue Star. So it was all lit up. So this allowed jurors to remotely walk through the crime scene to get a much better idea of what actually happened to Iana in that condo that led to her death. So not only was a 3D animation utilized, but jurors, as well as Olga, poor Olga, had to view dozens of graphic photos of Iana. Although it was unimaginably painful to see, Olga had this feeling that because she is her mother, someone who loved her needed to bear witness to all that she had gone through. So while Blake's father did not attend the trial, his brother Cody was in court every day. There were 6 days of testimony that involved 14 prosecution witnesses, while the defense called none of its own. Defense attorney Heda Takasugi tried to create reasonable doubt.
Go to hell.
That Blake hadn't actually written syndrome. He had writers, so he didn't do that.
Well, to be fair, she's probably just collecting money from this stupid family. So I hope she took them for all they're worth. Go ahead, take their millions of dollars. They'll give it to you. They're all stupid.
How do you stand in front of a courtroom and say those words?
She's just trying to make the law and be like, okay, well, she's going to take her payday and go home.
So according to coroner Jim Ribe, who completed Iana's autopsy, the skin and hair had been fully removed from her skull down to the surface of bone, and a portion of the right side of her face, including her right ear, it was gone. So this was something that he had never seen before, and he doubts if any forensic pathologist in this country or abroad has seen outside of maybe wartime. This is like beyond horrific. So prosecutors told jurors that he used a sharp object to remove Iana's scalp, possibly the green paring knife or the bloodied razor that was found in the bathroom, as well as his bare hands. Jurors heard that investigators found Iana's right ear and portions of her scalp in garbage bags that were outside the dumpster, just outside the condo. He threw away pieces of his fiance as if she was nothing more than trash. So after 3 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Mike?
Super guilty and burn him alive.
So he was obviously found guilty of first-degree murder. And as the verdict was read, he sat there with no emotion whatsoever. But out in the hallway, Olga was overcome with emotion as she yelled out that she was sorry that she had not been there to save her daughter. Despite the fact that Olga is grateful for the detectives, she is haunted by the fact that, her instinct to call the police days before they actually got into the condo, it wasn't enough to save her baby girl.
Yeah, well, Olga, you don't expect your daughter to be murdered by the guy that she supposedly loved, and that supposedly loved her and the daughter and the new daughter they had together. It's just so horrible.
So she believes that as she stood at that door on Wednesday, one day before the officers got into the unit, that her daughter would likely still be here today. However, according to Sergeant Martindale, based on the timeline that was depicted by the pathologist, it's likely that she was already dead by that point. Of course, the phone calls started coming through on Tuesday, but they didn't get in until Thursday. So Blake was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Although investigators hope that the Leibel family would do something honorable to assist Olga and their granddaughter and Cody's niece, Diana, of course, not 1 cent has been paid to support her.
What a scumbag of a family, man alive. And I mean, you just show it by the dad not being there for his son. Like, it just seems normal for them just to be horrible family to each other.
She has not heard from anyone in that family.
Yuck.
Sadly, Iana always dreamed of raising her daughter in America, but because of the lack of money, Diana is now living in Ukraine in the town where her mother was laid to rest. Olga continues to feel her daughter's presence each and every day, and she keeps her memory alive by talking about her often. The Kasian family eventually won a wrongful death lawsuit against Blake Leibel and was awarded a settlement of $41.6 million, but from the articles that I have read, they have yet to receive any money.
Interesting.
I don't get that. So according to Jake Finkel, this is an attorney representing Iana's family, Diana will one day obviously learn the truth about what happened to her mother, which we know hearing this story was utterly grotesque and barbaric. Olga has told him one thing over and over. Blake didn't just kill her, he killed all of us. The most precious thing to take away from a little girl, from a woman, is her mother. Diana's mother was taken away from her before she even got a real chance to learn about her, to get to know her. And that is the utterly brutal murder of Iana Kasian.
It's so incredibly sad. It's, like you said, super brutal. It wasn't like the murders we talk about every week. This is like a scalping. That is something absolutely insane. Like this,
he said, like barbaric war times, something you do not see.
This guy had demons inside of him, and still does. And the Leibel family is just putting this into the courts and trying to delay things just so they don't have to pay it. And if they keep on putting in, whatever these motions are and stuff, like these rich families know all about it. They just pay somebody to delay it as long as possible, and they're just trying. What a piece of garbage family. I get that maybe that's why they didn't give them any monetary assistance, because they knew they'd probably get sued or whatever for wrongful deaths. But now you got to pay the piper, right? Mm-hmm. Does anybody know this Leibel family? Why aren't there more call outs? I guess they're going to sue anybody who talks bad about them. So I guess that's one thing.
But the point is that little girl doesn't have her mother. And now Olga is trying her best to be there and raise her, but Blake comes from this extremely wealthy family. The least they can do is give her some money so that she could provide their granddaughter, their niece, a good life.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Be an honorable person and pay that bill.
Right.
40 whatever million, that's a lot. And maybe excessive, maybe not. But it's also excessive to take a life. So all it is money. I'd rather pay it $700 billion and be on the hook for that rather than lose any of my children.
Right. You can't put a price on somebody's life. It's just the point that now Olga is struggling to provide for her granddaughter, who lost her mom in the most brutal way possible. So, and when I say they're wealthy, they are very wealthy.
Yeah, sounds like it. Man.
So just a terribly sad story. I am so deeply sorry for Iana's family. I can't imagine the pain that her mother, Olga, has to feel every single moment of her waking days.
Just another case of, whether it's American or not, if you have money, you can get away with murder.
Granted, he is spending the rest of his life behind bars, thank God.
Yeah, but the family's not paying anything, even though they owe it. It makes me absolutely sick when people with power and money don't have to do the things normal people like us have to do.
Right, it is. It's sickening.
Yeah.
But we thank you guys so much for being here with us. We appreciate each and every one of you supporting us.
Yep.
And we have bonus content every Wednesday. We're here for you for that.
Make sure you click and subscribe on the YouTube channel, on any podcast platform you're listening to. We just had a friend the other day that was like, how come I don't get told when you guys have new episodes? And I just turned on that little notification. Just hit that bell. You're good to go.
Anytime I like a podcast, I do that because that way it tracks where I am, what episodes I've listened to, that sort of thing. But either way, thank you so much for being here, for listening. And until next time, bye.